So hey guys, it's Mckernan. I'm just here with my wife Pauline. She's actually not on screen right now, but we'll get her into the screen one of these days. But in essence, she basically encouraged me to do a video today because she overheard a conversation I was having with a client today who's really caught between making a decision and not making a decision, and actually kind of internalizing and making this all about quitting and giving up, which is an old pattern. And a lot of guilt and shame around it. So basically we're going to have a little conversation. I just said, Pauline, just ask me a couple of questions and see where it goes. So thanks for joining us.
So Philip, when should you quit, or when should you continue to persevere and do what you're doing?
Okay, so this could be a very long conversation. So in the context of this gentleman here, right, intuitively he's discovered, right, and he knows at an emotional level what he's doing in the case of the work that he does and the geographical location in which he lives. And ironically, it was the work that brought him there, which is interesting. A lot of people live in geographical locations for money, and when you do that, that comes at a cost. But let's just get back to him. He realizes that he's not living in a very good place, physically. He knows that intuitively, but he uses his brain, his intellect, to almost kind of talk himself out of that situation, etc. So when you start to come to a place of knowing intuitively that something is not serving you, whether it's the work you do, the relationship with someone else, the relationship with yourself, you need to make an emotional decision, emotional switch to say, this has got to change. But what people misunderstand is they think that is you having to make a decision today. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you have to say, am I worth this conversation? Am I worth sitting in this place that's not serving me? Can I adjust it? Can I make some sort of change in that environment? Or do I need to let it go? Do I need to give it up? Do I need to move on from it? And it's how we internalize that. And for this man, he was making it about quitting. And he brings back old patterns and old conversations where his parents implied and even almost told him that he quit just when he was getting good at something, whether it was soccer, whether it was music, whether it was work, whether it was business. And in fact, I believe in his case, he should quit the shit out of so many things in his life because it's just not serving him. What he's doing is he's staying in a situation that's not serving him. He's afraid of being called a quitter, but in actual fact, what he's done is he's quitted on himself. He's given up on himself because he hasn't put a value on himself to say, I deserve more than a job that doesn't work. I deserve more than a geographical location that I don't want to live in. I'm not sure if that's answered your question.
That absolutely does, because I think the point that I thought was really good was when you talked about quitting on yourself. And I think that was the real powerful part of that story.
Yeah, I think for him is that every day he quits on himself. And I think people who stay in situations or predicaments that actually they intuitively know, and the amount of people that stay in relationships and they just know in their heart and soul it's not right, and they're hoping that circumstances will change that relationship, or that it will turn around, or something will come back. And I've had many instances of this, and people who tell me that, oh, I was brokenhearted, or this person cheated on me, or that happened, or I say, is that really a surprise? Or somewhere in deep down inside of you, did you actually almost kind of expect that? And they'll say things like, when you take the emotion, the charge away, they'll say things like, oh, you know what, actually, intuitively I knew that was going to happen, and I had the warning signs years ago. Or they'll stay in a job 6 or 7 or 8 years past, when they knew and know they should exit. And yet, when it comes to it after 3 years, there's almost a tipping point where they've become kind of almost reliant on it from a financial standpoint and a lifestyle standpoint. And then they could say, well, I didn't give up then, and might as well stay. But resentment towards the organization, the industry, but also yourself builds. And also people within their own skin is that they don't want to face a certain element of who they are, a story, a part of their past, because they're afraid of it. But they actually quit on themselves. They quit just when they're about to break through and get something really important. But on the other side of that, people are not quitting enough in jobs. I think the stats are something obscene, like 80%, almost 90% of people in North America are in the wrong jobs, in the wrong positions, doing the wrong thing. I think the same stat applies to people in every aspect of life. But we're not quitting enough. And historically, it's really interesting. Think about back to where we come from, our ancestors. Our ancestors didn't have choices. So let's just go back to the farm, like in terms of my mother's side, etc., etc. They grew up on farms. There wasn't a lot of choice. They didn't have, going to America, going to Canada, going to, getting on a plane and going to Australia. It wasn't really options in those days. So they grew up on a farm, and their options were limited. And in a way, I envy those people when I look back, because your destiny was almost kind of laid out for you. I'm not suggesting they were more empowered or less empowered as we are today. But today comes with a different type of pressure, because today there are lots of options. And people hear about people making a living and actually doing something they're passionate about, and it puts extra pressure on them. And I just think that it's easy for our parents to put an awful lot of shame and guilt on us about changing and making changes. And they call it giving up. Oh, you're just giving up, you're giving up. For years, I felt it from my own family. Direct and indirect pressure, because I kept moving every 5 years. I moved from the vitamin industry, the retail industry, the coffee industry, the wine industry. And even today, I'm over 5 years in, full-time doing what I do. Like full-time, where I decided, okay, for 10 years or 12 years I've been coaching people, I'm now going to step in full-time. But even in 5 years I've quit what I did, because I've changed the model. I'm adapting. I don't see it as quitting. And I think that our parents and our ancestors have passed on guilt and shame about the so-called quitting nature that we have. I'd love to exchange that with passion and courage, finding the courage to change something. Find the courage to look at your life and actually recognize that actually I'm not living in the right place and I got to change that up. There's a lack of urgency in the world today, where people just think they're going to come back and they're going to have 4 or 5 lives, and they're just not acting upon what they know intuitively today, because intellectually they're just to find they don't have the clarity to what's next, so they do nothing.
Yeah, well, actually, that's the question I was going to ask you. So if someone's faced with actually having a decision to make, where do they start?
You start with what you know. I had another client, this is just a day of a number of different phone calls today with clients, so this is just pretty fresh, so bear with us. But another client today who said, okay, so one thing I do know is where I want to live. But there's no point moving back there, wherever that is, because I still face the same predicament. I don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life from a career standpoint. And it's unfortunate that we've made this switch as a society. Now, I didn't get that email and I didn't get that text, and I don't remember getting that phone call to say, by the way, we've just passed a precipice in life that you're now defined, your self-worth is now defined and combined or underlined or underpinned by your net worth or by what you do professionally. And it's almost we put too much credence on that. And I said, why are you spending so much time focusing on what you don't know? And why don't you step in and act upon what you do know? So let's just I'll give you a hypothetical situation to attempt to explain. Let's just say I'm living in Vancouver right now, which I am. I wake up tomorrow morning and I recognize, maybe for the first time, and I've been trying to convince myself that Vancouver is the place, but let's just say I decide Vancouver is not the place for me. And let's just say I decide that Atlanta, Georgia is. Okay, that's the place for me. But I'm uncertain about my career path. I'm uncertain about my business, and I'm uncertain whether in Atlanta they're going to be open to me and my work. Okay? And I wait and I stay and I stifle myself trying to get clear on my path in terms of my career. And I stay in a place that doesn't serve me. But what people don't trust is that why not act upon the piece you do know? Move from the thing that's not serving you. Move to Atlanta. And is it possible? Do you think it's even remotely possible? This is not a question necessarily to you, but you can answer it, or to yourself who's listening. That in that space, you'll actually find something that you weren't even open to before. I know the answer to that question for me, and I know the answer to that question for lots of our clients. And I also know with respect that answer for you, because that happened to you as well.
Okay, great. And I think just the whole thing underlying this really is about turning the whole thing for quitting on things or being a giver up to like quitting on yourself. And I think that's what really this video is about.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an awful lot of people who walk around and think that the idea of giving up on a certain path is quitting, and quitting from a negative standpoint. I actually see it as letting go. And is there a big difference between letting go and quitting? It depends on your perspective. But letting go is allowing yourself the freedom to go and move towards something else. Quitting upon something feels like failure and shame and guilt, and it has such negative connotations. And there is a balance between quitting on your dream or giving up on your dream. It's something that you hold so close and so dear to you. As true as long as it is your dream. It's not just what you think you want, it's what you absolutely know you want. And actually giving up on something that you know is not serving you. Like, you just know it's not serving you, and yet you continue to hold on to it. And you continue to convince yourself that it's going to improve. You continue to convince yourself that it's going to get better, or that you don't have the wherewithal to try something different. And what it all undermines it, everything, is value, is belief in oneself, is your own self-value. Because if I stay in a predicament that's not serving me, I'm really saying one thing and that's one thing only. This is what I deserve. And it comes down to one saying, and I believe, honestly, and this might sound arrogant, it is probably the most profound thing that has ever come out of my mouth, and it remains true to this day, is that we give ourselves what we feel we deserve. And if I feel, whether I'm conscious of this or not, deep down, if I feel I'm not a good person, deep down, that's the type of environment and life that I'm going to give myself. That comes down to my physical body, it comes down to my emotional state, it comes down to my mental state, it comes down to the place I live, it comes down to the work I do, and everything in between.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Philip.
Cheers. That's very official. Anyway, guys, it's the first time we've done something like this, so hopefully you stuck with us. I'm not sure you could actually hear Pauline's voice or not. We'll know about that after we record it. We decided not to do lots of different takes. We just did one. Thanks for checking in, and feel free to email us. And I see email us, even comment under this in terms of stuff that you'd like us to discuss, or not even like us to discuss, or even me to discuss. And I know some of you are going to want me to get out of the way and get Pauline in here as well, perhaps. And yeah, let us know if that's what you want. Thanks.